So in this video, we're going to talk about the triangle of transformation. And what we've learned is if we want to truly unlock the potential in a gathering, we have to understand the sources of opportunity to do so, as well as the pitfalls and the traps and why it is that we will fall short. So at xchange, we use this simple but powerful model to think about unlocking potential in a group. Now, there's three sources of capital, and here's how it works. Number one, we have intellectual capital, right? And the first two sources of capital usually need very little explanation. Many people will come to a gathering, a conference, a workshop, because they want to get information. We'll come back and talk about that in a moment. Number two is social capital, which also is pretty straightforward. I want to connect with, relate with, network with, be in the room with others who I can resonate with, who understand me or I could understand them. And then third is what we have is what's called communal capital. Right now, the interesting relationship between these three, it's not obvious. Intellectual and social capital are often the number one and two reasons somebody might show up to one of many different types of convenings, but it's often communal capital, which is why they will want to come back. And by the way, communal capital is the fundamental experience of belonging. Now, before we unpack what we mean by that, I want to come all the way back to this idea of intellectual capital and just share what some of the common pitfalls are in how we think about designing different types of meetings. So when you think about the purpose of a gathering, oftentimes sharing information, multiplying the knowledge in the room is a priority. What we need to be careful of, though, is continually designing these gatherings where we are overemphasizing and over-prioritizing the content that is coming from the stage. I mean, we're living at a time where information has been commoditized and democratized for years. This isn't a new thing. Remember when you used to sit down Tuesday night at 9, because if you didn't, you would miss that television show? Do you know how many years ago that was? 30 years ago. You see, the modern content consumer for decades has already been conditioned to believe that when it comes to content or information, we should be able to get the info we want, when we want, where we want, on the device we want, at the time of our choosing and at the speed of our preference. So what I'm not saying is that we should get rid of great teachers and great teachings. What we are saying is that our most valued participants, if we want them to continually show up, we can no longer make our main priority the content that comes from the stage. They are too smart for that. Let's come over to social capital and just share one of the pitfalls around this particular source of value. It is very common for a conference designer or somebody putting on an organizational meeting to say one of the important priorities is relationship building. But as soon as we inquire into how and when and where they aim to achieve that objective, the answer is often disheartening. You see, really smart people with good intentions who want relationship building to happen are designing the gatherings where the true honest answer is, well, it'll happen during the cracks and the crevices, the bio breaks and the meal time and the open happy bar hour. And when I hear all these, I'm thinking, you mean the time when I, as a parent of 5 or as a leader of a small team, is kind of checking in on the rest of my life and work, or when I, as someone who's introverted, is very under-resourced? In other words, we're saying relationship building is important, but it's not even being designed into the prime time as opposed to almost an afterthought. So there is another way to achieve all of these opportunities, but I first want to expose some of the limitations to our unconscious approaches to achieve these forms of capital, right? I want to finish just with an acknowledgement on communal capital. You see, communal capital is something deeper, but also transcendent. It both on the micro level, it's the experience of safety and belonging, and on the macro level, it's a connection to our shared sense of purpose. And it also represents certain qualities that can eventually come alive in a group, in an organization. Look at it this way. Our biology needs to know, am I safe? Our psychology often unconsciously is wondering when we walk into a group, can I be me and still fit in with this group? The interesting thing about meetings where we say we're here to learn, we're here to tap into and share our creativity and to innovate and to solve important challenges. These are all intellectual invitations that are inviting this prefrontal cortex. But we're living at a time right now where people are not just distracted, they're under so much pressure and stress that they are largely walking into our gatherings, and it's not because of us, but just because of the conditions, of the circumstances of this world we live in, where they are still highly reactive and unconsciously coming from a survival part of their brains, which is disconnecting them from the ability to think, to create, to solve, to connect, to collaborate, cooperate. So what are we really saying? Maybe, even if the participants are not walking in saying, I want the experience of belonging, although sometimes they are, the most important thing to learn how to achieve is to design and facilitate our gatherings so that the way we connect people gives them the experience of safety and belonging so that they can tap into their highest cognitive capacities. Now, if this has you curious, awesome. What I want to do is in the next video with you, I want to introduce our three-part operating system for how we initiate, design, and facilitate, and give you some very simple thought exercises to make your next gathering exponentially more effective. Imagine if you could unlock intellectual, social, and communal capital all at once with one approach at a speed and a scale that you didn't think was possible. If you're ready to go beyond information and just inspiration and actually design conscious convenings that unlock transformation, let's keep going. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.